don't like this. I don't have this. Okay, guys, I can't find this document. So let's use it as a, so what's mutual induction? What's self-induction? What's mutual induction? What determines the value of inductance? How does self-induction act to oppose any variation within current? What's an inductive time constant? Why is AC better than DC in transmitting electrical power in long distances? What purpose does a transformer serve? All right, so compare the rate of change in flux within the primary versus the secondary coils. State if they could have the same value or do they have different values, and explain why. What purpose does the iron core serve in connecting the primary and the secondary coils to each other in the transformer design? How does one step up the voltage? How does one step down the voltage? So what was Edison's concern against using AC? Did we get AC or DC from a wall socket? All right, so which one did they use, AC or DC on the electric chair? All right, just jump in. If you want to answer any one of them.
Wall sockets have AC for sure.
Electric chair was AC.
AC, yeah. Why was it AC?
Which one, the sockets or the electric chair?
Electric chair. Sockets is AC because obviously AC is the way you distribute the electricity, right?
Because it was high voltage, right? I don't remember.
Okay, so it's AC because. Now this would be an interesting test question.
PR stunt.
Okay, what?
It's a PR stunt.
It's a PR stunt. Absolutely right. They were trying to demonstrate that AC is dangerous, right? Edison and his team came up with it to demonstrate that AC is dangerous. So they were trying to get people not to use AC. All right, so I'm trying to make a decision as to, I don't want to look for this document, obviously, so, but let's go over these questions.
If you built an electric chair with direct current, would it be just as lethal?
Oh yeah, oh, I mean, when somebody's having a heart attack, guys, what do? 1 amp of current, all right, in order to stop the heart, right? For a fraction of a second. So as long as you can hit the heart and keep the current there long enough, you can fry the heart. All right, AC is easier, obviously, because it paralyzes the muscles and all that stuff. But yeah, it could be just as deadly. There's no question about it.
Got them strapped down. They're not going anywhere either way.
Okay, that's the thing for me. Stating the obvious. You're right. Okay, so moving forward, let's move on to something happier. I don't know. Am I not gonna? I don't want to go back and forth. Okay, so what's mutual inductance?
The magnetic current induces a current in a different coil.
Okay, cool. It's a good try. I'm going to give you 5 points for that one. Guys, it's a proportionality constant, right? So the current in the primary is responsible for the flux in the secondary. So which means that the flux in the secondary is going to be proportional to the current in the primary. So in order to turn this into an equation, you need to have a proportionality constant. So what does the proportionality constant do? Whenever you vary the current in the primary, it's going to induce a voltage in the secondary. And this is going to tell you the factor of how much of an induction shift. This is going to tell you the factor of the influence of the change in current in the primary in terms of how much of an influence it has on the value of the electromotive force in the secondary. All right, so explaining mathematics using English is not that easy. All right, so which tells me that this may not be a very good test question because it's like you kind of know what it is, but it's tough to explain it. And the meaning of it kind of makes sense if you're looking at the relationship in terms of the change in current within the primary causing an electromotive force in the secondary. So bigger the mutual inductance is, the bigger the influence is going to be in terms of the amount of voltage that you're going to be able to generate in the secondary. So I just tried to get an intuitive sense for it. I would not benefit from asking this question. So the self-induction is the same thing. What's happening is the current here is causing a flux within the coil itself. So if you vary the current value, which is going to end up causing an electromotive force, which is going to oppose the change in the current value. Okay, so we talked about self-induction. Okay, guys, the induction or inductance in this case is going to depend on the geometry. L is your inductance. Self-induction is also known as just induction, so the proper units is going to be Henry. It depends on the geometry, so that's the area of this, the cross section that you're looking at. The length is going to matter. Okay, so the longer this is, the larger the induction is going to be, or inductance. And N is the number of turns per unit length. So those are the factors, which means that geometry is going to matter.
What determines the value of induction?
All right, so what determines the value of induction is geometry. All right, so what's the next one? All right, give your subsequent to the question. What's the next question?
How does self-induction act to oppose any variation within current?
Okay, so the self-induction, the induction is going to act to oppose any variation within the current through the Faraday's law, right? Okay, so any variation of the current value is going to cause a change in flux, and the circuit is going to act in such a way that the induced voltage is going to actually oppose that change in flux. All right, so the current, induced current is going to move in a direction that's going to oppose that change in flux. All right, so the Faraday's law explains that. All right, so what's the next question? You're up 2.7. Okay, guys, now this stuff is important. Induction or inductance that you're looking at is going to put the brakes on. If you try to increase the strength of the current, it's going to put the brakes on. So it's going to try to oppose that increase. If you try to reduce the current value, it's going to put the brakes on. So it's going to try to prevent that reduction in the value of the current. All right, so which means that the current is going to increase gradually or it's going to decrease gradually within the circuit. And that's what the induction does or inductance does. All right, so what's the next question?
What is an inductive time constant?
Okay, so inductive time constant, obviously, what the inductor does is going to put the brakes on whenever you try to increase the current. It's going to cause something called a back EMF, back electromotive force, which is going to oppose the change in current. So which means that the current is going to increase gradually. All right, so the current is going to build up gradually, just like that, or just like that. So the inductive time constant is the ratio of inductance to resistance that we're looking at. Okay, so what does it tell you? It tells you how fast the current value is going to build up, or how fast it's going to go down, how fast it's going to decay. All right, so what's the next question?
Why is AC better than DC at transmitting power long distances?
All right, we discussed that before. AC is better than DC because using AC, you can transform current into voltage, right? And so which means that much of that power is going to be available to the consumer after long distance transmission. All right, so I don't want to get into the details. We already had a few discussions on that one. Okay, so what's the next question?
The next question is, what purpose does a transformer serve?
All right, the short answer is it transforms voltage into current and current into voltage, right? All right, next question.
Next question is, compare the rate of change of flux within the primary and secondary coils. State if they could have a value that is different from each other.
Okay, okay, so we got a bunch of transformer questions. Change in flux within the primary and the change in flux within the secondary. Change in flux here and the change in flux here, there will have to be the same, right? So the change in flux in both of them will be the same. All right, so the next question is why? Why is it that the change in flux within the primary is the same as the change in flux within the secondary? Okay, who wants to answer that question? Okay, so change in flux in the primary and secondary are the same because?
Because it's the same magnetic field.
Okay, I'll give you 5 points for that one. Who has a different, more concise explanation for it? All right, so Nathan, what's the next question?
What purpose does the iron core serve in transformer design?
All right, so what's the purpose of the iron core?
It contains
conducts
a magnetic
the-
field.
Oh,
Magnetic
okay.
field,
It's so because the iron core is there to contain the magnetic field, right? The change of flux within the primary is going to be the same as the change of flux in the secondary. That's the reason why. If you didn't have an iron core, the flux within the primary and within the secondary would not be the same, right? All right, because of the iron core. The iron core is there to contain the magnetic field. Because you get an iron core, the magnetic field is contained. So any change in the value of the magnetic field within the primary is going to be the same as the change in the magnetic field value in the secondary because the core contains the magnetic field within it. All right, so what's the next? All right, so these are actually good test questions. This is a really ingenious design, and the only way this works is that's the only difference between a mutual inductor or the inductors and a transformer. In the transformer, the magnetic field is contained within a core. So when you vary the strength of the magnetic field here, the variation in the secondary is going to be the same. All right, and then it turns into a transformer. Okay, so what's the next question?
Up voltage.
All right, so what about the voltage? How do you increase the voltage? How do you reduce the voltage?
Change the number of turns. on the
Right,
primary
because-
and secondary.
Give yourself 5 points. Because the change of flux is the same, if you increase the turns in the secondary, the voltage is going to go up in the secondary. That's it. And if you reduce the number of turns in the secondary, the voltage is going to go down in the secondary. because they generated and transmitted powers are the same, the voltage and current are inversely proportional to each other. If the voltage goes up, the current goes down. If the voltage goes down, the current is going to go up. So by increasing the number of turns in the secondary, you increase the voltage, and then you reduce the current. All right, so I think we answered the next two questions. What's the following question?
What's Edison's main concern against using AC power?
All right, so his main concern was safety, right? He felt that AC was more dangerous than DC. It was a business decision. It was not a personal decision. The guy was in it for the money. He probably understood that it was cheaper to distribute current in the form of AC. He just also felt that it was dangerous. He was convinced that it was more dangerous. All right, so what's the next one?
Wall socket and then electric chair, which we started with.
Yeah, both of them are AC.
Yeah,
All right,
so
cool.
that's two.
Okay, cool. Give yourself 20 points for reading all the questions. Okay, so that made my